Pastor Burns, can you explain the saints?
Let's take a minute to talk about that. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Minute Message Ministry. As always, I'm your host, Pastor Burns, and in this channel, we talk about church hot-button issues while answering pastoral and layman questions. Today, we're going to talk about the saints, and specifically the Protestants, but we also brought the Catholics with us today to discuss the majorly larger theology that they have. As always, the Protestants is... The theology for the Protestants is small. I like to call it a 30-second theology. So the theology for saints is simply this, is that when you die and you go to heaven, you're in the number of saints. And during the war of Gog and Magog, when we come back, we'll be in the Lord's number and the Lord's army. And whenever there is no communication between here or there with saints, because, when Jesus, was telling the parable of Lazarus, it explains that there's a great void that Lazarus's master can't hear, or Lazarus can't hear Lazarus's master to bring him a cup of water. We believe that in death. So when you're in heaven, you're a saint. There's no omnipresence or any ability to communicate with anybody after that. But the Catholics have a completely different theology, and a vastly larger theology that's worth the 9-minute video. So, as always, I brought Luke Goerge. He's back for a second time. He's a diaconate candidate, and he's got 2 years till his ordination, and he's going to explain the theology of the saints for the Catholics.
Hi, everyone. So let's talk about the saints, in particular the communion of the saints. Catholic theology, the early church they always referred to themselves as saints, even alive. So like St. Paul, St. Peter, they referred to themselves as saints. They always did. Anybody that was part of the early church was a saint. It wasn't a matter of death yet. It includes all those baptized on earth, the souls in purgatory, and the faithful who have entered into the heavenly glory. We all live in one life in charity together. What else can I say about? Of course, we were talking about Lazarus. The wealthy man's talking to Lazarus, and says, "Hey, can you tell my people back home?" There's that thought that let's talk about the people that are in heaven. Is it wrong to pray to our people in heaven? It's not. Because, again, they're alive in Christ. So, they're not dead. They're dead in body, but they're not dead. So, just as we would do, let's say today, Pastor Burns' child is sick, and he says, "Hey, Luke, can you pray for my child?" There's no difference in Catholic theology to ask someone.
So it's an intercession, not really a praying to. It's can you pray
exactly
for me? Gotcha.
Exactly. We're asking someone, "Hey, can you pray to the Lord with us, for us?" Because we have something back here in our earthly bodies that's affecting our spiritual life. So, we talk about, and in that case, let's say we lost our job. Is that going to affect our spiritual life? Yes. So that's why we pray to the saints. We've lost a loved one. Is that going to affect our spiritual life? Yes. That's why we pray and ask for intercession from the saints. Can we go straight to God? Well, certainly. Does it hurt to ask someone else? I mean, just like we do here, we can go straight to God. We can say, hey, God, help us with this issue. Find a new job, help my loved one recover. But we can also say, hey, so-and-so down the street, can you pray? Can you pray for me, for my need here? There's nothing wrong with that. And Catholic theology says, no, there's nothing wrong. There's a couple of things I'm going to bring up. There's spiritual solidarity amongst the saints, binds us all together, of the faithful on earth. Not the Catholic faithful, not the Lutheran faithful, not all the faithful. So there's no separation. If you're baptized, you're of the faithful. You are called to be a saint. Not when you get to the other side, here on earth.
See, that's interesting because the Wesleyans, we don't have something called saints, but we have something called entire sanctification, which means that you're trying to reach spiritual perfection.
Yeah.
So that kind of is similar to what a Catholic would consider a earthly saint. Then.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And then of course there's some common errors that people will come across. Okay. Of course, to be a saint, it includes all those canonized. The church canonizes. No, again, we've gone through this, that all those that are made holy through baptism are saints. We're called to live a life here as a saint. So, the other error is those who have died have no connection to us, and that's no, because again, they're alive in Christ. They're not dead. Their bodies aren't with them currently. At the end, at the final judgment, they will get a body back because God,
right, Christ
has sanctified.
We believe that too. That you'll get your heavenly body, right?
So, what's the difference? If we're praying to them, isn't that kind of what the Bible speaks against? I mean, isn't that necromancy or witchcraft? And that's not. Necromancy, which is speaking to the dead, but there's a catch to necromancy. Necromancy is to predict the future. So what we're talking about is, okay, I'm going to play the lottery. I get into a seance, and I say, hey, my dad's dead, so let's use my dad. Hey, Dad, can you tell me what the numbers are going to be for the lottery? I just played the lottery, and I want to win. That's necromancy. That's trying to change my world here by utilizing someone from
the afterlife.
So
what you're really doing is, instead of saying, I want you directly to help me, what you're saying is, can you go and also speak to God for me, for my case, instead of, it's like you said, it's like asking your neighbor. You're saying, God, I need help with my job loss. But then you're also saying, Uncle Bill, I know that I know that you're in heaven. I know that you're a saint. Will you also intercede for me and ask God for help? Is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And of course, there's differences. I mean, again, that's necromancy. In the early church, the thing that makes Christianity so much different is we don't try to control God. All the other religions, the Roman deities, the Greek deities, the Egyptian deities, the Hindus, they all have a plethora of deities that were created from the universe. But our God
created the universe.
And
by definition, if you try to control God, he's not a God. So
exactly. And of course it becomes like God becomes a genie.
Yeah.
And the same thing with if you were to try to control a spirit, someone that's passed, you're doing exactly the same thing. That's why necromancy is so
popular. At least it was in the 80s.
yeah. But, that's why it was so shunned in the Bible. Is Now you're trying to control someone on the other side. Just like, the gentleman that stepped over Lazarus. Now he goes to me and he says, hey, Lazarus, I want you to go back and I want you to tell my people of what the future holds for them. That's necromancy.
Right.
So
there's a void. You can't do it.
Exactly.
No.
So we're all called to be saints. It's not. I mean, this is the Catholic theology, but we're all called to be saints here on earth, not.
That's a good message for. That's a good message for more than just the Catholics or Protestants. When you're here, we're called to do good, and we're called to live lives of holiness. So it says be holy. Be perfect for my Father in heaven is perfect. So it wouldn't be wrong to ask the Protestant community, not just the Catholic community, to try to live like a saint a little bit. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you got anything else?
No, I got a lot of notes, but I think I've pretty much covered everything. So.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have anyway. I'm going to ask Luke to come back actually for a little bit more because I know that there's more that he'd like to share, especially with Mary and all of that. But stay tuned for that video, maybe in a couple weeks or so. But like and subscribe. Don't forget to hop down in the comment section and ask me a question. If you don't ask a question, I cannot answer it. Share with your friends. And as always, have a great week.